All right, let's go ahead and talk about Rocco Spindler. Nebraska finally landing Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame. There was a little bit of a scary, you know, change in talk about, Nebraska's chances to land him there at the end. But overall, it even seemed that people thought, some people tweeted that we weren't going to land him, but Nebraska seemingly was probably in the driver's seat the whole time. A lot of speculation, a lot of that, but Nebraska ultimately lands him. So 6'5", 325 pounds, just a monster dude, 4-star recruit in the 21 class, 40 career games with 23 starts, right guard, over 1,300 snaps, just experience as can be. Is going to come back to the interior of that line with Evans and I think Latovsky. So just, a very big physical guy, was a wrestler in high school, dual sport athletes. Matt Rule loves his dual sport athletes. And so, I mean, a couple things they can work on, can occasionally get moved off a spot, but just overall, like he's going to be a huge, huge part of this offensive line. And I think be able to help take us to that next level. So what are your thoughts on Spindler?
He's a day one starter. He's probably going to be your right guard, I'd say.
Yep. Yeah.
There's been some talk that maybe he slides to tackle, which makes zero sense to me because he's never played tackle before. But the one thing that sticks out to me is just you look at last season, he had 402 pass protection snaps and he allowed 0 sacks.
Yeah.
In his entire career, it was over 1,300 pass protection snaps and only allowed 2 sacks.
Yep.
And I think with Data Holgerson coming in, it's not going to be the air raid, but they're going to start throwing it a lot more than they have. And that's a huge, huge part of it. I think, like you said, he's still, I mean, he's not like an NFL guy right now. I don't think he's probably at least a year away, but he could be an NFL guy. He's better than what you got, though. That's the key thing.
Without a doubt. And I definitely don't see him moving to tackle. Some of the things that, he struggles with, wouldn't be beneficial to him at tackle because like he's very physical, but doesn't always have the, the best feet. I mean, he's good with his balance, but he doesn't get his punch out, early in a lot of cases. And that's what kind of knocks him back off his spot a little bit. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, I've watched some Notre Dame film. It's really hard for me to identify, right guard film because you're sitting there watching every single play, seeing what he could do. But for the most part, you look at his blocking efficiency numbers. I think it was 99.25% overall on his blocking efficiency numbers. So, which I think would have been higher than any of Nebraska's starters last year. So, just getting a monster there. I think the thing is you got to keep him where he's comfortable. You keep him at right guard. I think it's where he wants to be. It's where he needs to be. We don't need to be moving, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, we need him to come in here and be on this interior for sure. And kind of like you talked about,
grades are good too.
Yes, yeah. With you talking about even, last if you want to touch on his PFF grades real quick, do you have them up?
Yeah, I do. He had a basic, we'll call it 72, a 71.8 pass blocking grade and a 70 run blocking grade and almost 800 snaps this year. I think his overall grade was like a 70.5, which I think the national average is like in the 60s or mid 60s. So he's above your average basically.
Yep. And great puller too. He's really good at pulling, on those plays where he gets along, he stays skinny along the line of scrimmage and really is able to get over and, his timing's pretty good with that too. So doesn't get in the way a lot. Like I said, he has really good feet, but he's going to be more of a physical, try to move you around type of guy, typical with your wrestlers. So, but I think he, fits really well along this interior. We got some guys who are now experienced. You got Latovsky and Justin Evans, like I mentioned earlier. Talking about the center position, we talked about that last week. Could be Evans, could be Sam Sledge. Still not 100% sure, but Matt Rule did, kind of indicate in his press conference Saturday that he thinks they got multiple guys that could slide over to that center position. So, I think you had the same thoughts there where it's kind of Justin Evans that we think could potentially be there. But yeah, Sam Sledge does have experience playing center as well.
I think the big thing is just allowing, because Justin's only going to be a redshirt sophomore next season, and you give him another year to develop. I think it's huge. And a lot of people worry about transferring because of this day and age in football, but he's a homegrown kid.
He is.
And he's a legacy. And it's not like a Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd situation. Like they weren't playing because they were getting recruited over. he's not really getting recruited over. He just needs more time to develop. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, his freshman season, I mean, he broke out pretty well, just being thrown into the, you know, he just kind of got tossed out there after all the injuries happened over the course of the season, and you know, had a really good freshman year. Had some hiccups last year, but he got better as the season went along. And I think that's the biggest thing is you know, as long as he's getting better and improving, I think we're in, you know, for a treat this year with him and this line again, because, you know, Raiola's been doing a great job, regardless of what, you know, some people, I think for the most part, Husker fans have been, you know, pretty happy with what Raiola's been able to do with this offensive line. And you talked about just a second ago with Dana Holgerson's offense. And one of the things that Holgerson did well, you know, towards the end of that season, the latter part of that season, to keep some of the pressure off of Raiola, you know, one of the biggest things was getting the ball out of the hands of Raiola quickly, you know, with those short hitting routes that puts a lot less stress on your line. But then also, you know, it was one of those things where it's like, you know, his decision making was quicker, and you have those linemen with those splits, and that changes up. You know, you widen the splits out sometimes, you narrow the splits out sometimes. So it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, that offense has a lot more variables about what you can do with your offensive line to put them in a better position. You know, because, you know, sometimes they're going to want, when they start spreading that field out wide and they want to come up the middle, they're going to widen those splits out just a little bit. Requires a little bit more athleticism from your linemen. But it's those little subtle things too that I think will go a long way into helping this offensive line improve, on top of the actual improvements that they'll make in their development as well. So, anything else on Rocco?
Oh, no, I'm good on Rocco. I was just going to say, like, the thing with Raiola is, like, he's improved year over year, that line.
Yes.
And people, like, truly forget, like, how awful Greg Austin was as an O-line coach and how awful your linemen were. Terrible. And so, yeah, I remember when Rule was like, yeah, I'm retaining Raiola. Everyone was like, are you freaking kidding me? But that's why he gets paid $10 million. Like, he knew and we didn't, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I was Raiola as an O-line coach.
I did too. I loved him from the start. I never doubted that man at any point. And there was another thing that Rule talked about with the offensive line here. Let me see if I can follow that. Yeah, he said ton of opportunity this spring for the young offensive linemen who have been in the program. And to win in college football, you're going to have to grow your own offensive linemen. This is something I've talked about since I've, you know, been on YouTube. Is I firmly believe that offensive lines, again, have, you know, more so than any position or unit on the field, they have to be a unit. They have to know the guy to the left and the right of them. They have to know their tendencies. They have to trust those guys. And also, you know, when they grow together, you know, as linemen at Nebraska, they also learn the quarterback, and the quarterback learns the lineman. And all of those things factor in. So it's like, it's not one of those things where you can, again, patchwork an offensive line together through the portal. So it was big that he mentioned that too, that, you know, there's a commitment here to growing your own offensive line and not just kind of just trying to pull everybody you can out of the portal and kind of throw them plug and play into this line.
If you want to do that, just go watch Colorado's tape.
Exactly. And that was, you know, that was one of the things I talked about when breaking them down over the offseason. I compared the two, and I was just like, they have to be a unit. They have to.
Yeah.
And that only comes from playing next to each other, you know, game in, game out, snap in, snap out, and knowing each other. More so than any position, the offensive line has to have that.